41. We're sing Ma Tovu, the line which actually comes from this week's Parsha. Ma Tovu Ohalecha, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha, Yisrael. How lovely are your tents. As we come together this morning to form our community of whoever is in this room, whoever is joining us online, among the tents of the sanctuary and the tents of Zoom. Page 141, and then for folks at home in the PDF, page 3. Ma tovu alecha, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu alecha, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu alecha, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu alecha, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, Ma Ma tovu, how lovely it is for us to all be together this morning to celebrate Shabbat, to celebrate some amazing simchas, birthdays and celebrations, and to just gather as a community to support each other and comfort each other as we need. Today, while it's Shabbat, it's also the 17th of Tammuz, 17th of the day of the Hebrew calendar, the month of Tammuz, which traditionally is the beginning of 3 weeks of mourning, 3 weeks of contemplation, of remembering, of preparing ourselves for the Tisha B'Av commemoration, where we remember not just the destruction of the temple, but so many of the events in Jewish history where we were victims and there was destruction. And we bring in all of our grief and all of our mourning and all of our need for remembering and healing in these 3 weeks and culminating on Tisha B'Av. But because it's Shabbat, we don't quite wear our grief quite as much. Traditionally, people fast on the 17th of Tammuz, and so we save that fast until tomorrow, if that's something that you find meaningful. So we're going to do our best to balance the observance of Shabbat and joy, as well as recognizing the beginning of this period in our calendar. So, and you should feel free to feel what you're feeling and offer whatever prayers are going to be meaningful and helpful for you this morning. So we're going to continue on page 165 and 17 in the PDF if you're online. This prayer, Elohai Neshama, the soul you gave to me is pure. So it's a reminder of that, to try and bring ourselves back to that. And if you know this song, it's a little bit of a call and response, or you can sing along with me. Elohai Neshama Shenatata We're going to continue with the Psalm for Shabbat on page 209. This is a relatively new melody, so it begins at the top of the page, Mizmor Shir, the first couple of lines, and then we have a moment where you can dive in the rest of the prayer in Hebrew or in English, or just sit for a quiet moment, and then we'll continue the melody at the very end of the last 4 lines. I'll try to keep you posted where we are. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat Tov Lehodot L'Adonai Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat Tov Lehodot L'Adonai U'zamer L'Shimcha U'zamer L'Shimcha להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב בחר בלילות. Page 211, the last four lines. Tzadik hatama yifrach, keres balvanon yizkeh, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. On yeduvun besiva, תשנים ורענים יהיו, להגיד כי אשר אדוני, צורי ואלוהיו לטבעות. On page 231, we get to our final psalm, Psalm 150. We bring in all the instruments of our voice, of our heart. You can clap or tap your feet. If you have an egg shaker, you can use that too. Page 231. We've warmed up a little bit by now in our bodies and our voices. We invite everyone to turn to page 247 and rise for the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMvorach. Baruch Adonai HaMvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu roach ha'olam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, osei shalom, uvarei et hakol. Please be seated. We continue on the next page in the Hebrew transliterated, Hakol Yoducha, let all beings cry out to you, beings of creation. La 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 Hakol yoducha v'hakol yishamchucha v'hakol yomru kadosh kadonai. Hakol yoducha v'hakol yishamchucha v'hakol yomru kadosh kadonai. Hakol yeromemu chasela yotzer yotzer hakol hakol yeromemu chasela yotzer yotzer hakol. Top of page 269. Lael baruch nemotiteinu. Let a new light shine forever upon Zion or Chadash, the bottom of the page. On page 273, we can take a moment to daven the words to ourselves, sit quietly, and just think about what it means to be surrounded with abounding love. Avarabav tanu. Adonai Eloheinu chem l'aginu Avinu Avinu The last three lines on 275 lead us into the Shema on the next page. V'havinu shalom me'aba kanfot haaretz v'tolichinu kol miyud le'artzeinu ki el poel Yeshuot ata v'kerav tanu shimcha gdosela be'emet lehodot lecha yichadcha b'yahava Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha V'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meutecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue on our own with biblical selection 1 or 2, as well as the final paragraph of the Shema on page 285. והיה Adonai Elohechem Emet. We've reached the Song of the Sea on page 291, a moment of arrival, of celebration, which today certainly feels like today, and if you don't know why, you will find out a little later. So hopefully there is something in your heart that can bring up something to be joyful about as we rejoice with Micha Mocha, page 291. La 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 mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nehedar ba kodesh mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai Nora tehilot osei Veleshira chadasha shibechu geolim Geolim l'shimcha Asafatayam yachad kulam hodu Vehimlich ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'elai Alalai, 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 alalai. Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, ufedechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael, go'aleinu, Adonai tzavaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. We'll begin the Amidah in a moment on page 295. It's our tradition to daven the first three prayers of the Amidah together out loud through the Kedusha. And after that time, you can use the remaining moments to daven the rest of the Amidah, find the alternative translations of the Amidah, or simply find the prayer that is most appropriate in your heart this morning. And when you're finished, you can have a seat. Again, we begin on page 295. Adonai, sfatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha, Adonai, sfatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot V'imot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'yava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Kol Chai Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofli Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. נאמן אתה להחיות כל חי, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי כל חי. Page 303. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק, משמיעים קול, מנסים למצרפים, למותם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכינו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד, תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. והננו תירנה, תירנה מלכותך, והננו תירנה, תירנה מלכותך, כדבר אמור בשירי עוזך, כדבר אמור בשירי עוזך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל המלך קדוש וקדוש אתה ברוך, אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Nobody's here from the simchas that are on the list. I thought you might ask anybody who's volunteered on an SAJ committee.
conclude our Amidah with a prayer for peace, page 323, Oseh Shalom, and transliterated at the bottom of the page. Oseh Shalom b'mramav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu. Oseh Shalom b'mramav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu. Oseh Shalom b'mramav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. We've come to the Torah service, part of our morning. We're going to begin on page 385. I'm going to call up our Torah holder, our ark opener, and as we open the ark, I invite everyone to please rise. You're going to be over here. Vayhi b'nso ha'aron vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai ve'yafutzu oivecha ve'yanusu mesanecha mipanecha ki mitzion teitzei Torah udvar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushata ki mitzion teitzei Torah udvar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushata ki mitzion teitzei Torah ki mitzion teitzei Torah. We respond on page 393. We chant responsively the top. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadolul Adonai hayiti unromema shema yachtav. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Please be seated. Our parsha this week is Parshat Balak, where we have a foreign people who are trying to offer curses and all the bad stuff for the people of Israel, and the priest who is commanded to offer all these curses is simply not able to do that. He can only offer blessings. And so we're in the third part of the reading today, and so he offers 4 blessings throughout the parsha, and these are going to be the final 2 that you hear about. And I'm sorry you missed the talking donkey this morning. You'll have to come back next year for that. That's in the first third of the parsha. If you want to follow along with the reading, it's in the larger red books under your seats. We are beginning on page 903, so we're in the book of Numbers, chapter 24, verse 1. Again, that's page 903. Page 903, chapter 24, verse 1. And we have a number of aliyot today, and a couple of group aliyot. So I just want to say the third aliyah is, we're celebrating a special simcha today. So the third aliyah is for anybody who has volunteered on a committee or served at SAJ on the board with our special aliyah honor today with Shell. So if you have served on a committee or on the board with Shell anytime over the last however many years, please come up for Aliyah 3. That's Aliyah 3. Aliyah 4 is for anyone observing a yahrzeit, either today or in the coming week. So that's if you are celebrating the anniversary of a person's passing. And then we have our other Aliyah 5 reserved for our special birthday. So again, page 903, this particular aliyah includes the opening lines from this morning, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov. How lovely and welcoming are your tents, Jacob. אתם בריקים אדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום. One second. It was all set and then it got moved. Okay, here we are.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvracha.
Baruch Adonai hamvracha leolam vaed.
Baruch atah, Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam vaed. Baruch Adonai hamvracha leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher karvenu li'avadoto v'notan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayar Bil'am ki tov b'nei Adonai levarech et Yisrael v'lo halach kefam b'fam likrat nechashim vayoshet el midbar panav vayisa Bil'am et einav vayar et Yisrael shochen lishvatav vatehi alav ruach Elohim vayisamech lo vayomar Neum Bil'am beno ve'or un'um hagever shetum ha'ayin. Neum shomea Imreel asher machazeh Shaddai yechazeh nofel uglui einayim. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Diane, I'm so honored and excited to offer you this blessing today. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless you on the occasion and honor of your
70th.
70th birthday today.
Thank you.
May you find joy today in celebrating with your family and your friends and your community. May you continue to find joy in all of your pursuits, in your writing and your research and your musical pursuits especially, and with good friends and developing more community and having insights, especially into Reconstructionist Judaism, which we here very much appreciate. And so may you celebrate many, many more years, up to 120, maybe some more. Well, maybe 120 is the tradition.
Okay.
So we will celebrate with you today, and we're very excited that we could be here with you. And
Thank
let
you.
us say Amen.
Continuing on verse 6, page 904.
Up here.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorah leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher karvanu levodoto v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
You can hold that open. Thank you. Amen. Kenechalim natui. Kenechalim nitayu. Keganot alei nahara. Kaholim natadonai. Karazim alei mayim. Yizamayim emidaliyav. Rizaro b'mayim rabim. Ve'yarom me'agag malko. V'tinasei malchuto. אל מוציאו ממצרים, כתועפות רעים לא יאכל גויים צרב, ועצמותיהם יגרם וחיצה וימחץ, קרש אחאב קרי וכלבי מי יקימנו, נברכך ברוך ועוררך ארור.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashakalah. Nala Amod.
Aliyah HaShlishit, and reminder, this is a group Aliyah for anyone who has served on a committee or on the board throughout many, many years with at SAJ with Shell. I'll include myself in that. We run the Israel committee together. I'm not sure we run the board together, but I'll run that committee.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirmanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Verse 10.
Amen. V'yicharaf Balak el Bilam, v'yispok et kapav, v'yomer Balak el Bilam, lakov oyevai keraticha, v'hinei berach tavarech zeh 3 פעמים. ואתה ברך לך אל מקומך, אמרתי כבד אכבדך, והנה מנח אדוני מכבוד, ויאמר בלעם אל בלק, הלא גם אל מלאכיך, אשר שלחת אליי, דיברתי לאמור, אם ייתן לי בלק, מלוא ביתו, כסף וזהב, לא אוכל לעבור את פי אדוני, לעשות טובה, או רע מליבי, אשר ידבר אדוני, אותו אדבר.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach to all of you who arose today, who have been blessed to be able to work with Shell over these many years, and on behalf of our whole community, have we all benefited from your leadership and in working with Shell, and so may we all be blessed because of that. Yasher koach.
So there are 8 of us here in the sanctuary, and there probably are more on the Zoom, but we can't see you, so we hope that you also joined in this Aliyah.
Yasher koach. Thank you. It's great to see you.
We can do healing.
Yeah, we should do healing. We'll take a moment while the Torah is out to offer a blessing of healing If there is anybody who you know who is in need of healing in mind, body, or spirit, I invite you to share their name out loud at the appropriate time in the prayer, and you can rise at your seat if you're able, and we'll go around the room and share their names. May the one who blessed our ancestors please offer complete healing. To Esther Aviva, Bat Sarah Adel, Avraham Michael Ben Shira Yafa Yosef, Larry Josephson, Zelda Bat Devorah Yisrael, Mort Gerberg, Chava Bat Moishe, Paul Lindenbaum, Phyllis Kreutner, Kayla Bat Sarah, Amy Mendelker, Margot Hellman, Florence Cohn, Tehila Bat Bella, Florence Rosenthal, Ruth Goldenson, Kate Frici, Jill Prosky, Yaakov Ben Ladi, Reyes Ben Sarah, Chava Bat Chaya, George Freiga, Jennifer Novak, Shimon Ben Sviv Esther, Hanan Lev Ben Leah, Abigail Feder-Kane, Hagen, Joseph, Heidi, and Annette Gottfried, and Jesse Gottfried, Sonali Rodchaudhary, and Ari Vogel, Al Seidenberg, Taibel Rucha Bat Hashka Avraham, Sarah Bat Leah Golda, Devorah Bat Chava Ignatz, John Joyce, Ginger Ignatoff, David Wise, Tzvia Bat Paya Veshlomo, and Gail Tunkel. Jonah.
Gary Mendelson, Ken Hogland, Ron Yaroslavsky, and all those struggling with addiction and their caregivers.
Marilyn. We're holding with us as well those named in the chat. Yes, Chris, do you have one more? So we hold all of those who have named and have not been named in our hearts, and we offer blessings of complete healing. And if healing is not possible, may they find comfort and peace. And let us say, Amen.
Nalamod Aliyah HaRevi'it. This is a yard site aliyah for anyone who was observing a yard site today or in the coming week. We're continuing on verse 14, page 905. George, wait.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kirvanu Le'avodato V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Can you hold this for me? Thank you. Amen. Ve'ata hineni holech le'ami lecha yatzecha asher yaseh ha'am hazeh le'amecha be'acharit hayamim vayisa meshalo vayomar neum bil'am beno ve'or u'neum hagever shetum ha'ayin Neum shomea Imreel ve'yodea dat elyon machazeh shadai yechazeh nofel uglui einayim erenu velo ata ashurenu velo karov דרך כוכב מיעקב, וקם שבט מישראל, ומחץ פאתי מואב, וקרקר כל בני שת. והיה אדום ירשע, והיה ירשע שעיר אויביו, וישראל עושה חיל, וירד מיעקב, והביא שריד מאיר.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noton haTorah.
Before I chant the El Malay memorial prayer, I'm going to invite those of you who have risen for an Aliyah this morning to please share the name and relationship of the person whose yard site you're observing. I ask those of you in the sanctuary to speak nice and loud into the microphone, and then if we have anyone online, I'll be sure to call on you as well. Myra?
My father, Stanley Kriegel, 10 years ago.
My father, Myron Davidson.
My great uncle, Donald Brightman.
My father, Thomas Fleming.
I think Donna?
Yeah, my father, Samuel Nathan Katzen.
I don't think there's anyone else. Is there anyone else online who is observing a yard site? So we hold the memory of all of those who we've mentioned as I chant the El Malay memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamsei Menocha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kirushim U'Tehorim Kezohar Rekiam Hasirim Lenishmat Yakirinu Kedoshenu Shelachu Leolamam Ana Bal Rachamim Hastirem B'tzal Kenafecha Leolamim Utzror Bitzror HaChayim Nishmatam Adonai Hu Nachalatam V'yanuchu V'shalom Amishkavam V'nomar Amen.
נא לעמוד לעלייה החמישית. ובמפתיע. Verse 20, page 906.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher keravanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayar et Amalek, vayisa mishalom, vayomar Reshit. Reshit goyim Amalek v'acharito adei oved. Vayar et hakini, vayisa mishalom, vayomar etana moshavecha v'sim basela kinecha. Ki miyeh levaer kain adma ashur tishbeka vayisa mishalo vayomar oy mihyeh misumoel v'tzim miyad kitim ve'inu ashur ve'inu eved v'gam hu adei oved Vayakum bilam, vayelech v'yashev limkomo, v'gam balak halach lidarko.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mi shaberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov imotenu Sarach v'Chavaleah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless you, Shel, in honor on the occasion of your, do you want to say it with me? 90th birthday, and in honor of the 77th anniversary of you becoming a bar mitzvah. May you be blessed today with celebration, with family, with good friends, by an amazing community. We have all been blessed by your many, many years of service and contribution to SAJ, whether it's been advising clergy. For me personally, it's been very special serving on our once ritual committee, on the board, on teaching various classes, as well as leading Torah discussions, being in charge of the Tish program with Dan Woods, having that going continuing it once the previous person left,
And mentors for many laners.
mentors for many, many laners, and coordinating the laners on high holidays. Am I missing anything else? I'm sure I'm missing. So we invite you to enjoy being showered. The Hugh Barron series of the lectures once a year. We're gonna just shout them out. Okay, Christy. Yes. Yes, and we encourage all of you to sit in the first row. I know it's hard, right? We appreciate it when you do. Yes, Betsy.
And having fathered wonderful children who have also contributed to the life of the synagogue and the community.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes, and we know that Rebecca is here, and hopefully Jonathan is online.
Jonathan's not.
He's not. He is online. Yay! So may we all be blessed because of you, and may you be blessed because of all of these wonderful things, and may you be showered with sweetness that hopefully we not only just offered in words, but perhaps we can gently shower them. And anybody who is able to bend over can come help pick them up. And let us say, Amen. Simin tov and mazel tov and mazel tov and simin tov and mazel tov and mazel tov and simin tov and mazel tov and mazel tov and simin tov. Yehelanu, 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 Uvechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvechol SAJ. Mazel tov, Yasher Koach.
Mazel tov.
So, while we're raising the Torah and taking care of that. Do you want to have a seat?
I should sit down.
Yeah, why don't you have a seat? And we're going to raise the Torah and stuff, right?
Nalamod lahag ba'av liglila. Please rise for the raising and binding of the Torah scroll. Okay.
I shouldn't sit.
You're right.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Lalai, 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 Please be seated. I know it's unusual, but this is the Parsha of Shel's Bar Mitzvah, and so he is actually going to chant the Haftorah. The Haftorah begins on page 916. That's page 916, not too far. And he's going to chant the blessings first.
Of course.
Yes. When you get settled, and then I'll put the mics up. Oop. Line 16.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Too far.
We got two pages stuck together.
Whoops. I'll let you the honor.
Easy.
Thank you.
There we go. Put this right on top. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to mention one thing that I hope you'll notice in the Haftarah. The last verse in what we'll read, chapter 6, verse 8, is one of the most famous verses. And why is that? Well, there is a long tradition of trying to find formulations of the virtues, the commands to the Jewish people to minimize their length, to reduce them to the essential, from which, of course, all of the 613 flow, and the 10 and so on, but they try to reduce the number of core principles, and famously Micah reduced them to 3, as you will see, and 2 of the 3 are well understood. Let me just read verse 8. He has told you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, only to do justice and to love goodness, really probably better as kindness, and to walk modestly with your God. Now, justice and kindness are clear, but what does it mean to walk modestly with your God? We could spend a lot of time on that, but we're not going to. Look at the notes at the bottom of the page where two views are presented from outstanding thinkers. Abravanel from the 15th century Spain and Rosenzweig from 20th century Germany. And it's not surprising that they disagree. They take totally different approaches. When you reduce the number of commandments to something, you inevitably go to something more abstract and more ambiguous, and that results in the arguments. In any case, I'll be reading from, after the blessings, from chapter 6, the first 8 verses, or the only 8 verses. The blessing again before is on page 409. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza b'divreihem hane'amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. שמעו נא את אשר אדוני אומר, קום רי ותהרים ותשמענה הגבעות קולך. שמעו הרים את ריב אדוני והאיתנים מוסדי ארץ, כי ריב אדוני עם עמו ועם ישראל יתווכח. עמי מה עשיתי לך ומה העליתיך הנביא, כי העליתיך מארץ מצרים ומבית עבדים פדיתיך, וישלח לפניך את משה, אהרון ומרים. עמי זכורנה מיעץ, בלק מלך מואב, ומענה אותו בלעם בן באור, מן השיטים עד הגלגל, למען דת צדקות אדוני. במה קדם אדוני, יקף לאלוהי מרום, הקדמנו בעולות, בעגלים בני שנה. היוצא אדוני באלפי אלים, ברבבות נחלי שמן. היתן בכורי פשעי, פרי בטני חטאת נפשי. הגיד לך אדם מה טוב, ומה אדוני דורש ממך. כי אם עשות משפט ואהבת חסד, והצנע לכת עם אלוהיך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צדקה ימין צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך ודבר אחד מדבריך, הכל לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעמך ישראל תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, במהרה יבוא ויגל לבנו. וישיב לב אבות על בנים, ולב בנים על אבותם, וביתך בית תפילה יקרא לכל העמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מביא שלום לעד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
So we have an opportunity to hear some teaching, and we have a relatively new member who's going to come up and offer some words of Torah, Jonah Mendelson. Can't wait to hear.
Thank you very much. Mazel tov to you, Shel. How wonderful to be here on this auspicious day. And I have not yet gotten to serve on a committee with you, but I look forward to it. I also want to just say in advance, I want to say a thank you to our Tuesday, Friday morning wake-up group, who are my teachers and my supporters in going deeper into Torah. So thank you to you all for being fellow travelers. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishknotecha Yisrael, Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, how fine your encampments. That's how I first learned this prayer. Louis Lewandowski's grand musical setting, learning the Hebrew by rote. In my 30s, my voice teacher hired me to sing in the high holiday choir that he directed at a conservative synagogue. It was a musical milestone for me. I was singing with a professional choir at a very high level, all experienced soloists. One was a member of the Met Chorus, but I had no idea what I was singing or why. According to synagogue policy, all the singers hired for the choir were supposed to be Jews. Our conductor was very lax about this. He wanted great singers regardless of background. 2 of our members weren't even a little bit Jewish, but they were wonderful singers. So our director coached them on how to fit in, going so far as to ask them to Jewify their names on their employment paperwork. Eddie and Tina were much less likely to raise questions than Christian and Christina. It wasn't an idle concern. One evening after services, as we were filing out, one particularly nosy congregant blocked Tina's exit, asking, "Are you sure everyone in the choir is Jewish?" Now, there are a few reasons this person might have singled out Tina. She was an incredible singer, gorgeous voice, very tall, from Germanic stock. She was also a very rare breed, a butch lesbian soprano. Well, Tina was a total pro who had gone to the extra effort of putting on lipstick and a skirt for the gig, and she wasn't going to take any flack. Without missing a bit, she said, "Of course we are," and continued her march out the door. My choir director was delighted that my last name was Mendelson. As people had my whole life, he assumed I was Jewish and never asked about my background. In fact, my father had walked away from Hebrew school at 11, immersed himself in jazz and science fiction, and other assimilated things in high school. By the time he went to college in the 60s, he left Judaism so far behind that he came home from his second year of college engaged to an ex-nun. Even with intermarriage on the rise, that was provocative. And as he raised me, he was also distinctly anti-religion. You could say that he cursed it as superstition, irrational, a fairy tale for the weak-minded. So when I was hired to sing in this choir, I'd only entered a synagogue once in my life when I was 9 for my cousin's bar mitzvah. I did my best to silence the internalized voice of my father's judgment and learn and fit in, but everything in the synagogue seemed foreign to me except maybe for making music. As I arrived for my second rehearsal, the rabbi stopped me in the lobby. Looking at me very intensely, said, "Can you join us for the evening minyan?" I had no idea what he was talking about. In a panic, I mumbled that I'm with the choir, rushed past him down the stairs. I could feel my face flush. I knew that I'd committed some kind of error. I burst into the choir room, sat down quickly, wanting to hide behind the giant binder of music. "What's wrong?" asked my director. "Are you okay?" I told him what happened and saw his own face flush red in turn. "The rabbi was asking you to complete a minyan. You should have gone to prayers." "I didn't know," I said. "I should have warned you about it. Don't worry, if it comes up, I'll take care of it, somehow." I don't know if it ever came up, but he was definitely worried. So much for flying under the radar. So what does this have to do with our Parsha Balak? So after many adventures in the wilderness alone, the Israelites have reached the edge of the promised land, only to discover that there are other people there. Suddenly things that have kept them together since Sinai, Moses' authority, the novel laws and rituals and practices, are being tested by encounters with other people with ways of their own. At the end of the Parsha, the collective integrity and the loyalty of the Israelites to this new way of life is under challenge by these foreigners, or actually they're the foreigners. First, their resolve to finish their journey wavers when it appears that they may need to battle larger forces to gain territory. This fear leads to internal strife, multiple challenges to Moses' authority, which are only resolved by the intervention of divine authority, the opening of the earth to swallow Korach, and that sort of thing. This authority that has been invisible to everyone except for Moses, other than a few signs and wonders. But Moses has this special relationship. He's the only one who has direct contact with this authority. At the end of this parsha, we get another internal struggle. The Israelites will use violence for the first time to protect the boundaries of their group, killing both the foreigners and their own members who strayed outside the accepted behavior by intermingling. This would seem to send a clear message. You're in or you're out. Follow the rules or face the worst punishment. But before we get that story, we have this surprising detour. The bulk of our parsha takes place from the point of view of our enemies. It turns out that the Moabites aren't going to be faceless bad guys. They see this crowd coming out of the wilderness into territory, and Balak, one of their number, perhaps one of their leaders, reacts in fear. Perhaps it's a similar fear to the one experienced by the Israelite scouts when they first crossed the border to check things out and were so afraid that they saw the others as giants. Balak immediately seeks to unify his people against these invaders, preparing them for battle through propaganda. He hires Balaam, a famous diviner or PR man, to curse the strangers. Now, Balaam has a lot of incentive to say this curse, to shore up Balak's authority to start the war and to stoke the fear. But he initially says no. Now, this could be just a negotiating tactic. And if it is, it's a good one, because Balak responds by sending more dignitaries and offering greater compensation. Certainly, it seems that Balaam would be afforded greater status against the Moabite if he goes along with this narrative fear and with what Balak is trying to get everyone to say and delivers the curse as requested. And it seems he's tempted, because once the incentive is increased, he saddles the donkey with alacrity and is impatient when the donkey delays. Brutally so, in fact, ignoring any resistance to his following this path. The journey ends up being a struggle, though, between two sources of authority and motivation for Balaam. On the one hand is this extrinsic motive, this attention and material reward being offered by Balak and the Moabites. If he can get the approval of these peers by endorsing their fear-based belief and dehumanizing the strangers. And on the other hand is this thing that's given Balaam the reason he's the focus of our story. He has a relationship with this invisible divine, with the same unseen voice perhaps that speaks to Moses. Certainly he goes by the same name in our story. Now, compared to Moses, Balaam is not a great man. His relationship with Adonai seems to be entirely self-serving. At night, when it's just him and God, it's easy for him to be faithful to this inner voice. During the day, however, he seems to be besotted by the attention that Balak bestows on him and exploits this relationship to try and get himself ahead. In the face of Balaam's inflated ego, God ends up going to rather extreme measures to get through to him and get this message across, this truth. Balaam is so focused on himself and his own gain that he experiences no awe, even when God breaks the rules of nature to let this animal start talking to him. He's one of two animals in the whole Bible to open mouth and have speech. And Balak is just like, well, we got to get going. I've got a contract to fulfill. To really get through to Balaam, what finally changes him and gets him to take God's side and commit to the truth over what Balak and his Moabite buddies are asking of him, God has to have an angel threaten him with a sword. It's the threat of death that says, okay, maybe I don't need all that wealth, and I guess I'll commit to it. Nevertheless, thanks to this extraordinary invention from this invisible divine, Balaam is able to let go of the temptation to fit in and offer an honest assessment to Balak. He actually says, I can't curse them. Moreover, as he balks at Balak's demands for a curse, Balaam has to face the same anger from Balak that Balaam had shown to his own donkey. As the text says, enraged at Balaam, Balak struck his hands together. I called you, Balak said to Balaam, to damn my enemies, and instead you have blessed them 3 times. Back with you at once to your own place. Balak is not the contemplative sort. He has no relationship with Adonai to uncover his eyes. It's entirely possible to imagine Balak carrying a grudge rather than honoring Balaam as Balaam had hoped. Tradition says that Balaam later says that Balaam is killed in a later confrontation with the Israelites. As angry as Balak is at Balaam's insubordination, it's not hard to imagine that he left Balaam open to such an attack. He wasn't one of the few esteemed people who were protected. Speaking truth to power is a great way to become a martyr. Nevertheless, Balaam's intrinsic confidence and relationship with this invisible authority allows him to stand on his own and hold his ground. Actually, he does more than that. Balaam is able to transcend his fear of being rejected and the expectations of everyone else to actually look out at the Israelites and see them with a clear eye. He actually, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel, like palm groves that stretch out, like gardens beside a river, like aloes planted by Adonai, like cedars beside the water. Balaam's relationship with the divine, his ability to see past acceptable narratives and tune into deeper truths in the situation, allows him to recognize the integrity of this foreign encampment, the brilliance of the ways that the Israelites have organized themselves. Each has their own tent, a private space where perhaps they can nurture their own relationship with the divine, surrounding the central tabernacle, a gathering place where they can come together and unite their strands of knowledge and faith, not into blind compliance and fitting in, but into something both individual and collective, woven together like a rope that is stronger than any individual strand alone would be. They may be outsiders, but because Balaam has a relationship with the same invisible authority that is behind all of them, they are not alien. There's the possibility of appreciation, of identification, and perhaps, as it comes down to us through the millennia, there's the possibility of relationship between peoples rather than war and eternal otherness. In this parsha, the relationships between inside and outside, between self and other, are relatively clear. You're either Israelite or Moabite. Mingling and mixing among peoples is inconceivable and leads to horrible violence. And the incident seems to insist on clear separation between peoples. Yet the writers of the Torah and its redactors do this surprising thing. They complicate this message of separation by taking us inside the enemy camp, by inviting us to identify with the Moabites, or at least momentarily set aside our judgment and appreciate the ways in which these others can express a similar humanity to ours. I wonder what would have happened if Balaam had gone along and cursed the Israelites. Would that curse have mobilized the Moabites into an all-out war? Instead of the incident of intermingling that ends pretty horribly, perhaps it could have been worse, direct all-out war. It's not much solace, given how it turns out, but it might have been worse if Balaam had not found the imperfect strength to speak up for the humanity of the enemy. Perhaps the momentum of war was diminished slightly, allowing for a lessening of the horror. And these questions of inside and outside, self and other, continue to play out today in very different ways. Rather than standing alone and separate in the wilderness, we here aspire to live in an integrated city, to share land and resources with those who are different from us, often falling far short of our ideals. Reconstructionism challenges us to fully claim our residence in multiple civilizations at the same time, as Jews and Americans. Yet even those separate identities are fraught with disagreement with each other and internally. Can we talk about a single American civilization given the current polarization around core political issues? Is our America the same as a red state America? What holds us together here with conservative and Orthodox Jews or with secular Jews in Israel? Nevertheless, Balaam's story, taking place when it does in an even more brutal time, offers hope. Even if we reject the literal voice in the God of story, it points to some intrinsic, essential humanity and a shared relationship with the mysteries of life that make it possible to ground ourselves and reach out to try to connect across difference and disagreement. It's through services that I come to this sense of belonging and optimism. After a few years hiding in the choir, I connected with a rabbi elsewhere who actually invited me to consider becoming a part of the Jewish community. I was no longer afraid of the judgments my father had instilled in me in cursing and othering religion. I'd become familiar and comfortable enough to overcome any internalized objections. Now I wanted to do more than avoid making mistakes to avoid standing out. I wanted to be part of the community, to see and be seen, to belong. Almost 10 years later, in my 40s, I converted to Judaism and had a bar mitzvah. Obviously, I now feel sufficiently inside to accept an invitation to stand on the bima and share these words of Torah with you, secure that my relationships and experience and wholeness are sufficient to overcome any mistakes or offense I might cause. Embracing Judaism gives me a sense of grounding in our complex world, and I feel embraced in return. How fair are your tents, O Jacob? How fine your encampments. When we gather for Shacharit, our morning prayers, these are the words that we start with, the words of our flawed but ultimately compassionate enemy. By starting our communal prayer, surely the most inside of Jewish baseball, speaking these words of our enemy, of an outsider, invite us to pause, to see ourselves from the outside of our Jewish encampment. For those of us who know them, the familiar prayers offer us solace and connection and familiarity. But Balaam's presence makes sure that we don't hide from the rest of the whole story. This takes place in a world, in the wilderness, in relationship to other people who disagree with us. There may be strangers in our midst, people who feel excluded by the same prayers that give us comfort, like my father. Maybe we ourselves are just going through the motions, but often end up feeling like kind of a fraud. Or perhaps the forms of Judaism make sense, but part of us still feels left out, that we are alienated from ourselves, or we don't know how to reconcile who we all have to be at work to fit in the world and with other people and who we are here. By speaking the words of an outsider, it invites us to set aside our assumptions and offer each other the curiosity and compassion that comes from recognizing our separateness. And let us be mindful that we are visible, that our faith and independence and connected collegiality can be seen from the outside as cliquishness or cause fear in others. It is up to us to present ourselves with dignity and humility, to ground ourselves in this mystery that connects us even across our difference, to reach out with curiosity and compassion, and to invite others to share their angle on us, their view of reality, so that we can find that common ground, and so that the fear rises constantly can be countered with a constant flow of understanding and trust. Thank you.
Beautiful, Yasher Koah. Thank you, Jonah. We're going to return the Torah to the Ark. So I'm going to invite our Ark opener and our Torah holder. We're going to turn to page 433. Please rise. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskov Shemo levado, Odo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren liyamo, tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Continue on 441. Eitz Chaim He, in the middle is the tree of life. Eitz Chaim He, lama chaziki ba betomecha meushar deracheho darcheinom bechol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha benashuvo chodesh chodesh yameinu chodesh yameinu kekedem. We remain standing for the Aleinu that is on page 445 at the top of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liyotzer bereshit, shenatan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu, v'anachnu koreim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech b'chei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. continue on the next page, the last 3 lines in the Hebrew and transliteration. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemor v'haya Adonai le'melech kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Please be seated. In reciting the Kaddish, we affirm our awareness of holiness in our world. Much of our experience of divine goodness, grace, and love has come to us through those whose lives have touched our own. Today, the SAJ community remembers Bertie Skult, Myron Davidson, Bunny Hoffinger, Belle Israel, I. Stanley Kriegel, Samuel Katzen, Eli Messenger, Thomas Held. And if there's anyone else who's remembering, you can say their name out loud. We invoke the transcendent power of love and caring as we sanctify God's name with the Mourner's Kaddish, page 451. If you're reciting Kaddish or it's your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divarach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'izman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlam araba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May all those remember be comforted, and let us say amen. Invite up Janet, our chair, to share some announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So wonderful to see everyone here today. Thank you to Shel Schiffman for laning and to Jonah Mendelson for leading the drash. It was really remarkable to have one of our longest-term members and one of our newest members contribute so much to our service today. Happy, happy birthday to Shel and to Diane Cole. I was trying to figure it out, and I think that between them, they've probably attended about 500 hours of board meetings over the years. And they're here to talk about it, or maybe not talk about it. You know, we could really do a Tish completely about Shel, but instead, Abe is going to come up, and he has a few things to say, and then I'll go back and finish the announcements.
All right, Shabbat Shalom. All right, there's nobody here in this sanctuary who has not witnessed and experienced Shel's modeling of a life dedicated Torah, to teaching, to laning, to inspiring the rest of us to learn, to teach, to lane, You did that today. You pointed our attention to those two beautiful interpretations of what it means to walk humbly with our God, both of which you exemplify: a life of inner piety out of sight, as well as speaking truth publicly in the moment. Everyone here in this room has experienced that of Shell. Not everyone here has experienced Shell's extraordinary leadership of the congregation over the years. And that is really a tribute to Shell's leadership, because every thriving congregation changes and grows. There isn't a moment without change and growth. And because the congregation changed and grew, so many of us are here today who were not here when Shell was one of those leading our change and our growth. This congregation has been blessed with an extraordinary succession of rabbis and lay leaders who have led change and growth. Shell served for years as a member of our board, as a member of our executive committee, as a member and chair of our ritual committee, as a private mentor and advisor and admonisher of board chairs and rabbis. There are issues which now seem long ago and far away for good reason, but were really hard at the time. And Shell led several long, difficult processes of taking the congregation through dealing with issues about our liturgy, about our ritual practice, really every aspect of who we are as a congregation. He did it at a time when the congregation was at a different place when it is now, when polarization of opinion was perhaps more like our current politics outside than the dynamics of our wonderful congregation today. Inside, Shell modeled civility. Shell saw every point of view, and I think without Shell, it would have been really hard for the rabbis of the congregation and for the other lay leaders of the congregation to have come from there to here. So I really want to make sure that everyone who's here now knows this, appreciates this, and we say thank you.
Thank you to Abe, and thank you to Shell for really being the gold standard. And, you know, you have just inspired so many of us, and we always, always learn from you. Some other announcements: if you'd like to put the name of a loved one on a memorial wall in time for the high holidays, contact Debbie Rudd in the office. The deadline to submit is July 29th. Tisha B'Av is Saturday night, August 6th. SAJ will join with other Reconstructionist congregations, both in person and online. High holiday tickets and registration information will be available in the next couple of weeks. Next week we have a community shiur, and for Kiddush we'll hold a summer reunion picnic in Central Park. SAJ will provide lunch, cold drinks, dessert, and chairs for those who need them. Please join us for Kiddush in the social hall, sponsored by Shell and Helene in honor of Shell's birthday and the anniversary of his bar mitzvah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and see you upstairs.
We'll conclude with Ein Keloheinu, relatively new melody on page 443. And for folks at home, that's page 109 in your PDF. Put this down here. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please join us upstairs for Kiddush. And folks at home, please unmute, say Shalom. We can greet everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everybody.
Shalom.
Beautiful
Shabbat
service.
Shalom, Karen
Shabbat Shalom.
Congratulations, Shel.
and Paul.
I don't know, if Shel can hear anybody? No.
Congratulations, Shel. Well done, Jonah. Bravo.
It's a nice
Yes.
coincidence.
Beautiful service as always. Good Shabbos.
Good
Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos. Good
Everyone.
service, everybody. I hope everybody is
Good
good today.
Shabbos, Sandy.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Wish we were there in person, actually.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, it's a
Hey,
little,
Dennis.
Agreed.
this is really a celebration,
Hi,
but
Karen.
we're lucky we have
Hi.
Zoom anyway,
Hi,
right?
We
Gail.
do, yes. Shabbat Shalom. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
Amen.
They're
Shabbat
there for
Shalom.
you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone on Zoom.
Shabbat Shalom,
Say-
Debbie.
Shabbat Shalom, Debbie.
Shabbat Shalom, Debbie.
Great service.
Thank you.
Looking forward to
It's a skirt.
what's in August, our share with you.
They have one in there because of these are these are prints. She makes like aprons too. Was there Memorial? Yeah.
I was muted the whole time. Marilyn, I hope you come to New York soon.
I
Are you
hope so
talking-
too.
Good.
I love seeing you.
I love seeing you too.
Karen, how was your vacation?
It's
Yes.
great. Oh, Gail, there you are. You were
Yes.
on the Mishaberach list. I
Yeah.
wonder what's the matter?
Symptoms, COVID. I'm going to take a test, the home test in a little
Yeah.
while. Feeling better, but whoa,
Well,
anyway,
yeah,
but thank you.
yeah.
And
Feel
I
better,
look forward,
Gail.
thank you. I look forward, Karen, to actually seeing you and hear about your vacations that you took
Yeah.
so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
fine.
Okay.
Karen always takes great vacations.
Yes.
She's a model for vacations.
Yes. Again, this was quite wonderful. And thank you
Great
for Zoom.
service.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
service.
Great service.
Mhm.
Loved it. Yeah.
Have a good day, a good
Have a good day,
Shabbos.
everybody. We'll see you
Everybody,
hopefully
yes.
somewhere soon at SAJ.
Right.
Yeah.
When it's
Okay.
in.
Safe to
Bye.
do so. I don't know.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Good
Bye.
Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos,
Shabbos.
everyone. Yes.
Yes. Please. Maybe.
So how do I do this? Hmm.